The Pokemon TCG undergoes a phenomenon every single season that is called the rotation. Now, the rotation takes 4 sets, or in our instance, letter blocks, out of the system to introduce 4 new sets to create a fresh and diverse and healthy metagame. This year's Pokemon TCG rotation will be happening in April of 2026, probably the week after Orlando, so like April 10th, 11th weekend. And that is when the G letter block will no longer be eligible for competitive Pokemon TCG play. Do whatever you would like at home with your friends or whatever, but then those cards end up moving to the expanded format, which is a different format that not a lot of people play, but I'll get into that a different day. So today I'm going to be your guide through all the cards that we are losing in this rotation, which is going to be quite a lot. Some of you guys are going to be very, very excited for some of these cards that are leaving the format, and some of you guys are going to be very sad to see some of your old friends. If you guys like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. We'll be doing a yearly video like this to give you guys all you need to know about rotation. And once I get a little bit more information and take some time, I'm going to give you guys an update on what the new decks are going to look like after rotation and how you can change your decks that you already have. So let's jump into it. I'm going to go ahead and just go through the decks that I pulled out, some of the most notable cards that I think you guys will recognize, you guys will miss. And we're going to start with our good friend Cloth. Now, Cloth wasn't too prevalent in its lifetime, but Cloth with its unhinged scissors attack was able to do a lot of damage. I mean, it lost a lot of steam when it lost some of its tools already earlier last year with its rotation, but it's still a card that you guys may know. I put Spiritomb in here because it's kind of funny because this card, there's no V Pokemon in the format, so this guy was just hanging out, waiting to rotate, so here he goes. Hoopa EX is another one of the cards that will be rotating with us. With the Energy Crest attack, it didn't really see a ton of play, but towards the end of its lifetime, while Kangaskhan was getting a little bit more popular, Hoopa EX was a wonderful option to deal with that for decks that already paired with Terra Crystal potentially, or having the Dark Energy package. Unfortunately, though, this will no longer be an answer for Kangaskhan decks moving forward. Cleffa is one of the most faithful cards that a lot of people played in either their Charizard deck, in either their Gardevoir deck, and even Dragapult decks. Like, Cleffa made its way into a lot of decks as a very strong support Pokemon, and so this one is an ode to Cleffa as Cleffa rotates out with the Grasping Draw attack. Squawkabilly also providing a lot of support for these aggressive turbo decks that we've come to know and love, with the Squawk and Seize ability, discarding your hand and drawing 6 cards on your first turn. But this card is also going to be leaving the format, so first turns are going to be a little bit less explosive as we move forward from here on out. Revavroom saw some life towards the end of its lifetime in the Goldango deck, and as well as some Serial Edge decks with the Rumbling Engine ability. We discard an energy from your hand to draw up to 6, and this card just didn't. Is going to be leaving as well. So this was a cool little alternative that people used in Goldango and Serial Edge to make sure they didn't brick in the end of the game, and it did its job. So see ya, Revavroom. Hawlucha has become a staple in Dragapult decks primarily. It hasn't really seen play anywhere else, but the Flying Entry ability is quite good at bumping up those 70 HP basics down to 60 and getting Dragapult to knock them down. You know, set them up, knock them down. The whole old slogan that we all know and love. Hawlucha will be rotating as well in this format. Brute Bonnet is going to be leaving with the Toxic Powered ability, so we can no longer have the Ancient Booster Capsule package to kind of poison our own Pokemon, to kind of set up that like combination with Mochi and do stuff like that. Like now we have only Patch EX specifically for that purpose, but Brute Bonnet and like I guess part of the Ancient package will be leaving the format. Bombardier didn't see a ton of play, but Bombardier did make its splash in the early iterations of Zoroark EX decks with the Fast Carrier ability or attack, sorry, to get 3 basic Pokemon, put them onto your bench. So also gone. Roaring Moon EX had a brief stint where it was a real deck with Frenzied Gouging and Calamity Storm. One of the more aggressive and scary turbo decks, later became just a splashable card in both Lost Box and just, you know, general attacking decks. Kind of has not seen play in the last couple months since last year's rotation, but yeah. Espathra EX has not seen a ton of play, but I felt like it was still a notable inclusion because Espathra was always talked about as a card that like could see play with the Dazzling Gaze ability and the Psyball, especially with the grass typing for dark type decks to play Splash into Psychic type decks. Unfortunately, Flittle was always too small for this card to actually work. Squovit was a card that was played in a lot of Arceus decks with the Nestash ability. Hasn't seen a ton of play in recent history, but for a long time, this card was a way to just shuffle our hand, put it to the bottom, and then draw off the barrel, or kind of keep cycling through our deck when things weren't as fresh in those situations. Toadscruel EX was a late surprise in the 2025 NAIC format, and with the Protective Mycelium ability to stop stuff from big attacks, big effective attacks and stuff like that. And then Colony Rush comes in, does a big heaping ton of damage with all the grass energy, and it was one of the big beaters in the grass package, which grass always feels like it's a little bit, it's like almost there, you know, it's almost there where it needs to be to just be good. Screamtail, one of the most primary attackers in the Gardevoir EX deck, will be rotating. I'm sure many of you are not too chuffed to see this one go. Scizor was a tech card used in the Goldengo deck for quite a while with the Punishing Scissors attack. This one prize option will no longer be available, but Solrock Goldengo version has basically taken over. So it's not like any love is lost here. Charizard EX. Now this one is a huge one that is rotating. Charizard EX has been dominant since the day it released. It has been winning majors from its release all the way in probably until its rotation, until its departure. Infernal Rain is such a broken ability. The typing being dark makes it deal with all its weaknesses in an efficient way. Burning Darkness being a 180 plus 30 means that at some point you can just put up a Charizard, Iono your opponent down to 1 or 2, and say, hey, can you deal with my Charizard? And a lot of the time the answer is no, and you're doing 300 damage to them at this point in time in the game. And so this will be a card that is going to be very missed by a lot of players. I know Charizard recently got the Dawn package and has been excelling once again in its individual format, but it will not be in the game anymore. Armarouge with the Fire Off ability was a really cool ability and a cool deck that people build a toolbox around using Prism energies and Luminous energies. But yeah, short-lived by Armarouge. The other Toedscool is also going to be leaving with Slime Mold Colony, which is a cool little dynamic where you could stop things like Stretcher and Superior Energy Retrieval from taking full effect. And so this is also going to be gone, yeah. Ditto, a transformative start, made a lot of the Noctowl decks and Fanrotom decks have a little bit more engine to get to their early Terra Pokemon, to get to that little extra Pokemon with just one Nest Ball, EV decks, whatever. Like everything was able to use this transformative start ability. A very, very cool card, very, very cool, very used in Raging Bolt. Like just one of the more cool cards that has existed where it can become anything but eats up one slot in your deck. So I'm actually very sad to see this one go. Miraidon EX is another one that you guys may be very familiar with, as it was the linchpin and cornerstone of all these lightning type Miraidon EX decks. Iron Hands in some iterations, Joltik Box in some iterations. The Miraidon EX deck has been rampant since the day it was released, paired with its good friend Electric Generator, and it's finally time to see Miraidon ride off into the sunset with its Tandem Unit ability. Pidgeot EX is another huge one that's going to be leaving the format. Quick Search has been a very cool part of the format, a reprint and homage from 0506. So we get to get any one card each turn with a pretty hefty cost to set it up with a candy and getting it up and running. Charizard being the biggest beneficiary of using Pidgeot, but these cool control decks have spawned in. We've seen some EV box decks playing Pidgeot, some Terra box decks. Basically, if you play a Fanrotom and you're going first, Pidgeot is something that is not, it's not a pipe dream. So a little bit sad to see this one go. And yeah. Banette EX was a card that was splashed in at the World Championships. Mateusz, a player that is very well known, was spamming this Banette deck with Banette Gardevoir, and it was a really cool deck, and Henry Brand, also former world champion, was playing it, and for what it was a very cool idea, a very cool concept, and it just didn't stick, you know? Mew EX, another big one with the restart ability. It's been a staple of consistency in a lot of decks, knowing that, hey, I can go Ultra Ball for Mew, I can go Nest Ball for Mew, put a Mew into play, and then I can draw some cards, and then I have Pheasantipity as well, and then I have Genome Hacking to basically copy in a pinch, and all those abilities will be gone now. Klefki with the Mischievous Lock ability, also a phenomenal card. We saw it take shape in a lot of different decks. Gardevoir played it at some points, Charizard played it at some points. Basically, just the ability is so good that you can just push it in the active and stunt a lot of these aggressive decks. In aggressive metagames, this card was the king at stopping decks from playing the game, and unfortunately will also be leaving. Gardevoir EX. Now you guys can either applaud, cry. This is the moment that all of you are waiting for. I know, the king is dead. Gardevoir is finally leaving. This card has been absolutely dominant since the day it entered the format, and will absolutely be dominant until the day it leaves. Consistently sitting at tier 1, never really dipping below. Psychic Embrace has always been such a absurd ability. And the slew of psychic type attackers that were, granted to Gardevoir have also made the deck very, very powerful. And for the first time in a long time, we will have a format with no Gardevoir. So some of you guys don't even know what that's like. Some of you guys have played Pokemon with only Gardevoir in the format. So this will be a refreshing change for you guys. Drifloon, another attacker for Gardevoir with the Balloon Blast, will also be leaving. Tapu Koko EX was a splashable tech in some lightning type decks, as well as Terra Box with the Vengeful Shock attack to paralyze your opponent's active Pokemon, and do 120 with lightning type weakness to 240 if need be. This card will also be leaving the format. Zatu with Clairvoyant Sense wasn't really seeing a ton of play, but it was in the early Dragapult EX builds, as well as some Slowking builds that are kind of floating around now. But this card will also be gone. Chansey made its splash at the World Championships this year in the Goldengo EX deck, which is really cool that this card was always like, hey, we can high roll into a prize card. and it ended up seeing some play, and I thought it was a notable inclusion to talk about before it left. Baxcalibur with Super Cold is also leaving. This card was a plague on the format for quite a while, paired with its good friend Chanpao, who will also be leaving. We'll get there in a second, but Super Cold Baxcalibur will be leaving the format. Chiyu with the Mega Fire of Envy attack that was splashed into Charizard decks will also be leaving, but now you have Moltres, which kind of takes its spot, but Chiyu is just a little bit better in the grand scheme of things. Fortress EX didn't see a ton of play, but there was always potential with Fortress and its exploding energy ability to kind of just power up your board, set it up, and get some grass type power going. So another grass type tool that is leaving the format. Iron Bundle created some really interesting situations on the field because Hyperblower just created some dynamics that opponents can really play around. How do you actually answer this? A stretcher for Hyperblower is a pseudo gust. Like, you can get around the big threats, deal with a small threat, and come back to the big threat later. And so this card was one of my favorite cards that has ever existed, I think. And I'm very sad to see that Hyperblower will be leaving the format. Iron Valiant EX didn't see a ton of play. It did win an internationals in a younger division. Iron Valiant with the Tachyon Bits aggro deck was kind of a cool deck, and it did make finals in the Masters of that division that year as well. So Cyanard, Iron Valiant, your love was short-lived. Chenpao also with the Shivery Chill and Hailblade ability attack combo was just absolutely absurd with Baxcalibur. You had so many tools to basically get this barrel Baxcalibur combo into play and just run rampant on the format. Very sad to see this one going. I think it was a very cool design, very cool played deck as well. Luxray with Swirling Flash. If you have more cards, you were able to put this guy into play, or more prizes, you were able to put this guy into play, and Wild Charge at 180 damage. This card didn't see a ton of play, but it was always like this randomly splashable tech card whenever things that were weak to lightning became more popular. And I thought that was really cool that a card like this could be splashed in, especially with just one of this and one reversal energy. So I really like the card design behind it, and I'm sad to see it leaving. Mimikyu, also one of the safeguarders that is in the current format. Also going to be leaving, but Safeguard always makes its reappearance in some capacity, so I wouldn't be shocked to see a different Pokemon inherit the mantle of Mimikyu in the upcoming sets. We have Goldengo EX, another one that you guys I know are so happy to see gone, or you're really sad to see gone because it's your deck of choice. Goldengo has been quite good for quite a while now, and it's going to be taking a big departure here from the format as its coin bonus ability, and it will be leaving the format. And Make It Rain has been a lot of fun since the day it was released. Another big, like, I've named Charizard, I've named Goldengo, I've named Gardevoir. You guys are probably thinking, what Pokemon cards are left? That's for a different video. Stay tuned. That's all the Pokemon. Let's jump into the trainers. I'm going to go quicker through the trainers because there's not a lot to talk about. Artisan, a staple of a lot of decks. TM Devo, another big one. The TMs are all going to be gone. Judge will be rotating as well, so one of our disruption methods. TM Turbo Energize, seeing a lot more play recently with the Absol deck, as well as the Gardevoir deck. TM Evolution, also leaving the format. EXP Share could be kind of cool, but it's also leaving. Jacques, a way to get 2 evolutions. Hilda is kind of cool, and Dawn is kind of cool, but Jacques did its job the way it did its job. Like, all 3 of them exist in the same space, but every single one filled a niche purpose. Electric Generator also leaving with the electric type decks, so one less tool to kind of go aggro onto the board, but Joltik is kind of stepped in. Energy Retrieval also leaving. It's a small one, but it does hurt grass a little bit. Mesagoza, a card that's near and dear to my heart, will be leaving the format as well. Miriam, another Shuffle Recovery draw card, leaving. Great Ball looking at the top 7, so another Ball Search leaving. It's like pretty, there's Dust Ball, which hits us from the bottom, but Great Ball getting from the top is like, it's a similar thing where it's like something is leaving the format. Superior Energy Retrieval is also quite good in Goldengo, but hasn't really seen play outside of that in a long time in Baxcalibur and Chanpao. So it's kind of leaving with its favorite attackers, basically. Super Rod is a big one because that's a huge recovery card that we've gotten very used to, and not playing with Super Rod is going to make the dynamic of the game very different when we only have Night Stretcher and Sacred Ash. Pokemon League Headquarters is a card that saw a little bit of play here and there, and that card will also be leaving. Tulip, getting 4 Psychic Pokemon in basic combination into your hand. This card didn't see a ton of play, but there was always potential behind it, and it will also be leaving the format. So Psychic type decks will lose another form of recovery, important to note. Pokegear 3.0 also leaving the format, so we have less chances to find those individual one-of supporters that we choose to tech and play. Less ways to be like, hey, I have a Pokegear, this can become a supporter next turn as we play the game as well. We have Picnic Basket leaving the format, so another answer to Dragapult leaving, and kind of those Monkey Dory Frostlass decks that could completely run rampant on this format in the upcoming little bit because we can't heal everything up and we can't make things awkward. Palpad also leaving, so we can't, again, do the weird one-of supporters that we can cycle or play like one less of a supporter to adjust for having a boss's orders. Penny is another big one that's going to be leaving because Penny is huge. It's been really good for these big basic stacks, especially Mega Box, and so Mega Box will be losing Penny. Nest Ball is probably the biggest loss, I think, from this rotation. for any of the trainer supporter stadiums, just because Nest Ball is such a staple in almost every single deck in terms of finding their Pokemon. If it's not Nest Ball, it's a Poffin based deck. But right now, a lot of decks are Nest Ball based, and so they're gonna have to find ways to kind of figure out how do we get our Pokemon into play? How do we get to play the game from this point onwards? Will Trolley become a better A spec across the board because it's easier to find stuff, or will people find a suitable solution for Nest Ball or something get reprinted? Moonlit Hill was a stadium that was played in Gardevoir for a little bit. This card will also be leaving. Countercatcher is a huge one because Dragapult loses this way to come back from games. You lose a lot of this way because Countercatcher was such a cool and innovative card because you got to play from behind and make these really cool plays in tandem with like a disruption card. But now that ability is being removed from the format. Like I always thought cards that do the effect of a supporter, a conditional supporter, are really cool because it introduces a whole like different dynamic and layer to the game. That's something we're going to be losing with no Countercatcher. Mela was also never really seen play, but it could have seen play. Luxurious Cape was big for those like big bait, like Crustle style decks, and that will also be something that's leaving. So important to note that Crustle and stuff will no longer have this big tool that makes them 100 HP bigger, and they have to deal with normal human methods like everyone else. Arven is a huge one that will be leaving the format. Arven's become a staple with the plethora of tools that we have accumulated, especially the technical machines that have done so much for our format. And Arven has been like the de facto way to fetch out your A spec in a lot of these games and a lot of situations, getting Secret Box, getting Trolley, getting Prime Catcher even, which will be no longer a way to do that. So we'll have to play different things to get that, like Petrel maybe even becomes a little bit better to get stuff. Vitality Band, another little bit of a bolster to the damage output, will be leaving the format. Beach Court for the one less retreat. Iono is a huge one as well because Iono is, now with Iono and Judge both gone, we have no form of disruption in the format as it currently stands unless one gets printed in the upcoming set. So losing Iono is actually quite a big blow because now decks can sit there and build their hands for turn after turn after turn after turn, and you can't really do anything about it. Yeah, unless you play, I don't even know what you can play. Defiance Band is another big one that saw a lot of like play towards the middle of its life in Charizard decks. And then Professor Research is another huge one. I looked through all the research. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Every single one has the G block printing. So Professor Research will no longer be in the standard format, which I don't think has happened. Like, I think it's happened once since 2011, which is a crazy thing to think about. So for 14 years, besides one small pocket of time, Professor Research has been in every single Pokemon TCG format. So we'll see if we know how to play the game without it. Professor Sada's Vitality also leaving. There are still some ancient Pokemon in the format that haven't rotated. Like you saw Raging Bolt is still around, but at this point it might as well have rotated because like, bro, you don't have Sada anymore. Like how are you going to accelerate? You have Crispin, I guess, but like Sada was such a big staple for those Raging Bolt decks and stuff like that. And we've just taken their biggest tool away from them. So another big thing, another big blow to these decks. Professor Turo's Scenario as well as leaving. So a little bit of a niche supporter that was very good for useful situations. And it's also going to be leaving, making the dynamic of certain matchups and certain situations a little bit harder and weirder to play. Erica's Invitation was never really played, but it was good in control decks. And this could become a pseudo way to gust in the board states, like I was saying, like where everyone has infinite cards in hand. We have no hand disruption. And a timely Erica's could be the way to snipe your opponent's win condition and just win in a random spot. And that card is also going to be leaving. Both booster capsules are going to be leaving Ancient and Future in the upcoming rotation. Town Store, another big one that kind of saw a lot of play just to get those. We had an abundance of really cool tools, and now those are all going to be leaving as well. Bravery Charm, another big one to make our big basics a little bit bigger. Gardevoir was definitely the biggest abuser of this card. Again, Gardevoir lost literally like everything from Gardevoir. Like we're just taking everything that it loves and cherishes. Yeah, and that is the trainers. And finally, the energies. There's not a lot of them. Luminous is leaving, making Dragapult a little bit weaker. Jet Energy is leaving, one of my favorites, my personal favorites, due to playing Lugia for as long as I did. Jet Energy saw a lot more. It's seeing a lot more niche use in this current format and like situations like that. So things like Mega Lopunny will not be able to use this card anymore, which is a little bit of a sad day for them because that card is like, I don't know, there's a lot of cool cards that can be used and cool synergies, and we lose some of that in the process. Therapeutic Energy as well. This card didn't see a ton of play, but goodbye as well. And then Reversal Energy, another cool card that I thought was very cool as a concept, a reprint from back in the old days. And that is that. So that is everything we are losing in this upcoming Pokemon TCG rotation. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully if you have questions in the questions or comments, or if you're excited about something, let me know down below. Peace out.